Ideally, every employee would want to have what's called an employment agreement, which is a document that would define the terms and conditions of employment and that would restrict when an employer can, and under what circumstances an employer can terminate the employee. Unfortunately, only a very small percentage of our workforce are governed by employment agreements, and they're almost always highly placed executives. Not surprisingly, these employment agreements are often crafted in favor of the employer in its interest instead of the executive's interest. And so for that reason, it's critical for a plaintiff's attorney to review the employment agreement for deficiencies. So for example, a employer's employment agreement may define just cause for termination very broadly. It's in the executive's interest to actually have just cause defined very narrowly. You know, another provision that we typically try to negotiate into an employment contract is, it's called a fee shifting provision or an attorney fee shifting provision, such that if the executive sues the employer for breach of the employment agreement, that the executive can be reimbursed for his attorney's fees and costs if he prevails in that lawsuit. You will rarely, if ever, see that in the first version of an employment agreement tendered by a major corporation. If there's a situation where an executive is terminated during the term of his employment contract, he should consult an attorney, or she should consult an attorney to determine whether or not the termination complied with the employment agreement. If a breach did occur, there is a cause of action called breach of contract, which the executive can file against the company to try to seek and recover the damages that are suffered as a result of the breach. Oftentimes, in addition to filing a breach of contract claim, it's also advantageous for the executive to file a claim under the North Carolina Wage and Hour Act in connection with a termination. In some circumstances, the North Carolina Wage and Hour Act can apply to that circumstance and allows for the payment of liquidated damages or double damages on the lost wages. And the breach of contract claim doesn't permit double damages, so it's often advantageous to couple those two claims together.